As it pleases the court, I am Micaela Gota, representing my client, Africa. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I implore you to imagine for just a moment Africa. An Africa who is characterized by modern agriculture, infrastructure, and an African express railway system. An Africa whose citizens are healthy, well-nourished, educated, skilled, and trained. I put to you a question. My lord, yes or no, do you believe that this type of Africa is attainable? As it pleases the court. This idea of Africa was echoed in the mind of Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. And during her tenure as the chairperson of the African Union Commission, this idea birthed the African Union's Agenda 63, an agenda centered on the transformation of Africa, detailing an Africa that Africans want, and an Africa that Africans deserve. But why? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, why is there a need to transform Africa? I put to you that for far too long, Africa has been observed through a lens of lack, a lack of education, development, and stability. Africa has been underestimated and undermined. The African mind has been boxed in and indoctrinated to believe that Africa can only produce one Nelson Mandela, one Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, one Letile Tebogo, one Trevor Noah. Are we truly to believe that greatness is just but a rare DNA strand in this continent? That only one child in every generation will rise to be exceptional? My lady, I refuse to believe that. I will not accept that narrative because I have seen the minds of our youth, the potential in our communities, and the resilience of our people. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in this case, the remedy sought is not restitution. I do not require compensation. I seek transformation. And the transformation of Africa begins with the transformation of the African mind. For my client, Africa does not require saving. She requires unleashing. The transformation of the African mind. It is a notion that appears abstract, even unattainable. But I assure you, Africa's transformation is on the horizon. It is underway, and if you do not perceive it, as it pleases the court, allow me to present the evidence. In March 2025, President Donald Trump ordered an immediate suspension of all foreign U.S. aid and assistance to Africa. While some might see this as the beginning of Africa's downfall, I choose to see it as the beginning of the end of Africa's reliance on foreign aid. Africa can no longer afford to wait for foreign interventions to solve the African problems. Simply put, Africa must move away from being a passive recipient of aid and move towards being an active architect of their own destiny. How? Well, it starts here. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I shall begin to incite the transformation the minds of the Africans in this room. As it pleases the court, I submit into evidence Exhibit A. What do you see? What ideas and images emerge in your mind, and most importantly, what is this to you? Allow me to assume, ladies and gentlemen, that in your mind, you have concluded that this is just a tomato. But in the mind of a certain young man, this tomato was not perceived as a mere fruit. It was perceived as a weapon of mass destruction. The destruction of the sorrowful, indigent, helpless Africa. As it pleases the court, I present into evidence the work of the president of the transition of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. President Traoré has taken Burkina Faso's simple tomato and has transformed it into a weapon of economic power. For many years, Burkina Faso farmers grew thousands of tomatoes, but with a lack of factories, tomatoes were left to rot or were sold for next to nothing, whilst local supermarkets were flooded with imported tomato products. The president then came forward with a bold step and established the first tomato processing plants in Burkina Faso named Sofato and Sopto. This move ignited Burkina Faso's now rapidly developing tomato paste industry. It incited job creation, employment opportunities, education opportunities, and economic growth. What used to rot in the fields is now being used to fuel a country's revolution. This tomato is evidence that Africa can process its own resources, it can feed its own people, and it can create its own wealth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask, what good are your eyes if your mind cannot see beyond them? Yes, it is your eyes that bear witness, but it is the mind that transforms. That is why the greatest transformation that my client needs is the transformation of the minds of her people. Personal transformation. That is the catalyst for a transformed Africa. Transformation can start as simply as changing the way you speak. As it pleases the court, I present to you a 6-step solution on how to transform your mind. The transformation of Africa begins when we, A, acknowledge our history and the sacrifices made by our forebears. F, fight fear, the doubt, and the imposter syndrome. You, the African over there, are capable of bringing about change. Being African is not a burden. It is the blueprint. R, reimagine education such that it speaks to our realities and honors our cultures. I, invest in the youth, the women, and the entrepreneurs, for they are the future and they are the builders of our tomorrow. C, cultivate environments that connect us and our traditions. And finally, A, amplify your voice. Speak up. The responsibility to transform this continent does not rest in the hands of politicians and presidents alone. It rests in the hands of you, the people. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case has been presented. The evidence undeniable. And the verdict, well, it rests with you. Let the scales of justice tip in one direction and in one direction only. Find in favor of the transformation of the African mind. Justice delayed is justice denied. As it pleases the court. Case closed.